The story of Henry Ford begins not in a factory but on a farm. He was born in the heart of rural Michigan in the summer of 1863. The world around him was one of seasons and soil of horse-drawn plows and the rhythms of the land. His father, William Ford, was an immigrant from Ireland who had built a life for his family through hard, honest farm work. He hoped his eldest son Henry would one day take over the family homestead. But young Henry's eyes were not on the fields. They were fixed on the horizon, on a future he could only just begin to imagine. A future powered by something other than muscle and sweat. From his earliest days, Henry was different. He was a tinkerer, a questioner, a boy utterly captivated by the inner workings of things. While other children played games, Henry could be found taking things apart. A watch given to him as a gift was not a timepiece to be treasured, but a puzzle to be solved. He carefully disassembled it piece by tiny piece, studying each gear and spring. Then, with a patience that defied his years, he put it back together again, making it tick perfectly. This was his school. His neighbors soon learned of his talent, bringing him their broken clocks and broken watches, and the young boy became the local master of mechanical repairs. His true epiphany, however, came on a country road. At 16, Henry Ford made the decision that would define his life. He left the familiar world of his family's farm behind. He packed a small bag and walked to the burgeoning city of Detroit. It was a world away from the quiet fields he knew. Detroit was a city of smoke and sound. It was a hub of industry and innovation. Amidst the clang of hammers and the hiss of steam, Ford sought to truly understand the heart of the machine. He was not looking for fame or fortune. He was looking for knowledge. He was an apprentice in search of a master, and the city itself would be his teacher. His first job was at the James F. Flower & Brothers machine shop. He earned $2.50 a week. It was grueling work. The pay was barely enough to survive. He took a second job at night, repairing watches for a local jeweler to make ends meet. But for Henry, the money was secondary. He was learning. By 1891, Henry Ford had taken a job that seemed, on the surface, to be a step away from his dream. He became an engineer for the Edison Illuminating Company. He was responsible for keeping Detroit's electrical service running, a position of great trust. The job offered stability and a good salary. He and his wife Clara were able to live comfortably. For many men, this would have been the pinnacle of a career. But for Henry, the steady job was simply a means to an end. It gave him the time, the resources, and the mental space to pursue his true passion in the shed behind his home on Bagley Avenue. That small brick shed became his laboratory. It was his sanctuary. Night after night, with Clara holding a kerosene lamp to light his work, Henry toiled over his creation. He was building an engine. Not a steam engine, but a small two-cylinder gasoline engine, crafted from scrap metal and sheer ingenuity. He tested it first in his kitchen sink on Christmas Eve of 1893. The engine sputtered to life, a noisy, vibrating confirmation of his theories. It worked, and if it could work in a sink, he knew it could work on the road. The dream was becoming a tangible reality. He then began to build a frame to hold his engine. 4 bicycle wheels, a simple tiller for steering, a seat for the driver. There were no brakes and only 2 forward gears. He called it the quadricycle. It was crude, it was experimental. The success of the quadricycle brought Henry Ford to the attention of Detroit's businessmen. They saw the potential in his horseless carriage. 1899, backed by wealthy investors, he formed the Detroit Automobile Company. For the first time, a proper factory, a team of mechanics. The farm boy who tinkered in a shed, now chief engineer of a promising enterprise. It seemed his path was set. Success would not come so easily. The road to building a car for the people was paved with failure. The investors wanted cars for the wealthy, quick returns on their money, elegant, expensive automobiles. Henry Ford had a different vision, obsessed with perfecting his design. He wanted a car that was simple, reliable. Racing was the test. He built a race car called Sweepstakes. October 1901, he challenged Alexander Winton. Ford, never raced before, behind the wheel, Spider Huff on the running board. Against all odds, Ford won. The victory made him a local hero. It restored his reputation and drew new backers. They formed the Henry Ford Company in 1901. On June 16, 1903, Henry Ford tried one last time. With a small group of investors, including the Dodge brothers who would supply the chassis, he founded the Ford Motor Company. This time, things were different. Ford had learned from his past failures. He retained full control over the manufacturing process. He was finally free to pursue his singular, unwavering vision. to build a simple, reliable, affordable for the average American family. The early years were a success, with models like the Model N becoming the best-selling car in the country. But Ford was not satisfied. He wanted to build one car, and one car only, and produce it on a scale the world had never seen. The key to this dream was not just the car itself, but the way it was made. At the time, automobiles were built by skilled craftsmen. They would assemble a car from start to finish in one spot, with workers moving around the stationary chassis, fetching parts and performing multiple tasks. He and his engineers studied other industries for inspiration, overhead trolleys used by Chicago meatpackers. Finally, in 1913, they introduced the first true moving assembly line. The time it took to assemble a Model T chassis plummeted from over 12 hours to just 93 minutes. With the assembly line perfected, Ford could now produce his signature car, the Model T, at a speed and cost that was previously unimaginable. Introduced in 1908, the Model T was not the first car, nor was it the fastest, nor the most luxurious. But it was something far more important. It was practical. It was built high off the ground to handle the rutted, unpaved roads of rural America. Its engine was simple enough that a farmer could repair it with basic tools. And as Ford's assembly line became more efficient, its price dropped year after year. A car that cost $825 in 1908 would cost less than $300 by the mid-1920s. Ford famously declared that customers could have the Model T in any color, so long as it is black. This single-minded focus on efficiency made the automobile accessible to the masses for the first time. It was no longer a toy for the rich, but a tool for the working man. The Model T, affectionately nicknamed the Tin Lizzie, put America on wheels. By the time production ended in 1927, over 15 million had been sold. The impact of the Model T on American life was profound and immediate. It ended the isolation of rural families. A trip to town that once took a full day by horse and buggy could now be done in an hour. The demand for cars led to a demand for better roads, gas stations, motels, roadside diners, and the growth of suburbs and new industries like oil, steel, rubber, and tourism. The assembly line was a marvel of efficiency, but it came at a human cost. The work was mind-numbingly repetitive, monotonous, physically demanding. Workers grew bored and exhausted. At the Ford Highland Park plant, the turnover rate was astronomical. In 1913, Ford's workforce was about 14,000, but the company hired over 52,000 men that year. The constant churn of hiring and training was inefficient and expensive. Ford realized his production system needed a revolutionary approach to labor. The machine was perfected. Now he had to perfect the human element. On January 5, 1914, Henry Ford made an announcement that stunned the industrial world. He declared he would more than double the base wage for male workers. Previously it was about $2.34 for a 9-hour day. He moved to a flat $5 for an 8-hour day. It was unprecedented. Critics called him a socialist, a madman. Other industrialists feared wages would rise everywhere. But Ford wasn't acting out of pure charity. It was one of his shrewdest business moves. The $5 day solved his labor problem. Turnover vanished almost overnight. Thousands flocked to Detroit, lining up outside the Ford plant. The higher wages also had a deeper effect. Ford was creating his own customers. Workers could now afford the cars they built. Henry Ford was a man of immense vision, but he was also a man of deep and troubling contradictions. He was a populist who empowered the common man with his automobile, yet he ruled his own company like an absolute monarch. He was a pacifist who vehemently opposed America's entry into World War I, even chartering a peace ship to Europe in a naive attempt to stop the fighting. Yet, when war came, his factories became a crucial part of the American war machine, producing engines, producing submarines, producing helmets. He was a complex figure, a hero to many, but one whose legacy is stained by his flaws. Perhaps the most significant stain on his character was his virulent anti-Semitism. In 1918 he purchased the Dearborn Independent and used it to publish a series of articles attacking Jewish people. Those articles were collected into a 4-volume set, The International Jew, the World's Foremost Problem. The pamphlet was distributed through Ford dealerships and translated into multiple languages. It inspired hate groups worldwide and was even praised in Mein Kampf. Ford later issued a pressured public apology, but the damage was done. His relationship with his workers and organized labor was another darkness. The man who introduced the $5 day grew to despise unions. He employed a ruthless internal security force run by Harry Bennett to intimidate workers. The Battle of the Overpass in 1937, where organizers were beaten, became a notorious symbol of his anti-labor stance. In 1941, under pressure, Ford recognized the United Auto Workers. The man who shaped industry was also stubborn to his own detriment. Henry Ford passed away in 1947 at the age of 83. He died in the same county where he was born, not far from the farm where he first dreamed of a world powered by machines. He had lived to see his horseless carriage transform America, transform the entire globe. He had witnessed the rise of a mobile, industrial society he helped to create. His name was not just a brand on a car, it became a synonym for a new way of living, a new way of working, a new way of seeing the world. His was a legacy forged in iron, forged in steel, and in brilliant, unyielding vision. His most tangible legacy is the Ford Motor Company, an industrial giant, but his impact runs far deeper than a single corporation. The assembly line, the principle of Fordism, became the dominant mode of manufacturing for nearly a century. Factories around the world adopted his methods: refrigerators, radios. He democratized the automobile. He created the template for modern consumer culture, making high-quality goods affordable for the masses. The world Ford created is the world we still inhabit today. Sprawling suburbs, intricate network of highways, global supply chains. The road he started continues to stretch before us, an unending path into the future he wanted to build.